Big 12 basketball men's tip-off here on Big 12 Now on ESPN Plus, simulcast on ESPNU. Thrilled to be joined here on the set by the commissioner of the Big 12, Bob Bowlsby. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you guys. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Great to be back, and great to be back in person. How would you just describe the effort from so many people that has gone into getting us back to this point over the last 12 months?
Well, you know, this is the first time we've done the men's and women's media days in one location, and so we needed to set up to make sure that it accommodated both events. And yesterday went very well with the women, and today has been terrific. You know, coaches are not usually effusive with their positive comments about media days. They would, most of them, rather go in for a colonoscopy than come to media day. But they have been complimentary about the setup, and appreciate you guys being here for this day.
Yeah, we'll talk about the craziness of the last 12 months, in particular the last 2 months for you, but just take us back to since we were here in March of 20 and all of the complications and the things that you as a commissioner of the Big 12 and other commissioners had to deal with.
Well, you know, we went, the A5 commissioners went about 9 months talking with each other in concert every day, including Saturdays and Sundays, for that entire 9 months. And there was a lot of collaboration that went into it. And frankly, I'd have to say I'm proud of the way we got through the football season, the basketball season. We had to move some things around. We had some surprises. I think what we learned was you better not plan very far ahead of time. You're better off to leave some things uncertain and deal with them at the last minute than we are to try and make plans and then have to scuttle them. But generally speaking, we got most of the football season in. We got an amazing amount of the basketball season in. We got an NCAA tournament in. So I think, given what our country was up against and given what our schools were up against, I think we got through it in pretty good fashion.
Let's talk about the phrase all commissioners and coaches love, conference realignment. I know the smile is, I mean, it's just what this conference has had to go through, right? Oklahoma and Texas leaving. You're going to have UCF, BYU, Houston, and Cincinnati coming in. What can you tell us about either adjustments to any timelines or what those conversations are like behind the scenes about what these next few years will look like for this league?
Well, I know remarkably little about the time frame. I know what the options are. In the case of BYU, they've said they intend to start on July 1st, 2023, and that's great. I think the others will try and do that, but they have indicated to us that they plan to join not later than July 1st, 2024. They have some things that they need to do to extricate themselves from the American Athletic Conference, and they're in the process of doing those. And so we're hopeful that perhaps it could be as early as 23, and certainly not later than 24. I think we'll find ourselves having to play in divisions at that point, and for a while we'll be 14 members. And so Texas and Oklahoma have made the statement publicly, and our documents would indicate that they will be with us through June 30th of 2025. And so until we see anything to the contrary, that's what we're going to assume. So we're going to play with 14 for a while, and then we'll fall back to 12, and we'll reassess at that point. And that could entail looking at targets of opportunity for additional expansion. It could entail a strategy to get larger, but I feel very good about the 4 that we've brought in, and we're here talking about men's basketball, and I think these 4 schools bring remarkable strength to the Big 12, and we're already pretty strong.
I want to get to these 4 teams here in a moment, just to put a bow on that. Is there a scenario that you see where the 2 programs that are leave sooner than 2025?
Well, I certainly would make the assumption that they would try and leave earlier than that. We have agreements in terms of our grant of rights and in terms of notice provisions in our bylaws, and we expect to exercise our prerogatives around those documents.
Is it possible that when all is said and done, that this, for somebody like me, a basketball guy, that this could be actually a better basketball league than the league you and I have watched over the last decade has been statistically the #1 league in basketball?
Yeah, well, I think that's arguable, Fran. I really do. Nobody has a better basketball tradition than Cincinnati. BYU has traditionally played in the top 25 and doing it coming out of a relatively mid-major league. I think in Houston's case, their strength is self-evident. They were in the Final Four last year, and UCF has had good teams as well, and coached by my dear friend Johnny Dawkins. So, I think that you don't ever replace truly an Oklahoma and a Texas, but in the sport of basketball, I don't think there's any question that we don't fall off much, and we may gain.
How would you describe just financially where this league will be, where you foresee it here in the next 3 to 5 to 8 years here as you try to recoup?
Well, we have an agreement that runs through June 30th of 2025,
right.
And so it'll be consistent through there. We will go to the market when the time comes, and it's good to own live content. Nobody knows what it's worth until somebody's ready to pay you for it. And as you guys all know, we're on the air on Big 12 now on ESPN Plus, and streaming has become a bigger and bigger part of the televising of college athletics, and I think that migration is going to continue. And so how you model in the marketplace is really dependent upon how many suitors there are and how many people are going to compete for that content. And so to forecast what it might be worth is really a fool's errand, because we just it's only worth what anybody will pay you for it at the time that they are going to consider it. And so we think that we're going to continue to play at a very high level. I think our content is high quality. We're going to be in 3 different time zones in a fairly significant manner. And I'm very bullish about the value of our conference going forward.
Bob, how will the name, image, and likeness issue affect the Big 12? It would seem to me that the Big 12 would be pretty well placed to do well by student athletes with this.
Yeah, I think not everything is just as I would like it relative to name, image, and likeness. As you know, I was involved in the organization within the NCAA that was trying to put some guardrails around this. There are some come through federal legislation, but I think we'll get some consistency eventually. And until then, we're going to have to deal with the circumstance that we have.
It was a couple of weeks ago that the Big 12 announced it would allow member schools to decide the amount of education-related benefits athletes can receive or can be given in an academic year following the Alston ruling over the summer. What does that paint the picture? What does that look like for student athletes in the Big 12?
Well, what we did was we had a standstill that our board put on and said we aren't going to do anything until we start to see what the marketplace is doing. And the SEC took their step, and others are considering it. But unlike most of the time in the past, we can't call them and say, hey, what are you doing with this? Because the courts have said that's collusion and therefore illegal. And so you really are left to your own devices. And so what we did was we came out and said we're going to let the Alston opinion stand in its entirety, and individual institutions can do with it what they will. And so there's a fair amount of institutional prerogative and breadth of prerogative there, and that makes people uncomfortable because we've always tried to legislate competitive equity in the rules. But in this case, I think we're probably going to be relatively slow to jump in. Eventually, it could go all the way up to $59.80 per student athlete. And one of the challenges in this is it can go to both scholarship athletes and non-scholarship athletes, and if it goes to non-scholarship athletes, it changes the equations around how many scholarships you can give. And so it's got some trickle-down effect that is not insignificant, and we're just going to have to play it on the fly. And I think that our institutions will look at it modestly in the early stages. Right now we have a delta in our league between $2,400 a year and $6,800 a year in full cost of attendance, and you never hear it show up on the recruiting trail. Everybody was worried that it was going to be the end of athletics as we knew it, and in the end, we managed through it. The college athletics environment has proven to be pretty resilient over the years, and indeed, NIL went in on July 1st, and these other things have come down the pike, and we're still playing games.
College sports is still going on.
That's right. We're still
watching and enjoying it.
Absolutely.
Well, we've enjoyed this. This has been a great setup, and thanks for being a part of spending 10 minutes with us. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you guys. Thanks for being here.
Bob Bowlsby, the commissioner of the Big 12.